Hey, everybody, welcome to a special episode of Whiskey Sour Libations and Conversations. It's your girl, Dominique Lovings. Today, we have a very, very special guest, and I want to start this like this. In life, we have many key moments that take place, which often include building impactful relationships with our teachers. Today's guest is actually one of my favorite teachers from middle school, and I'm honored to have my eighth grade history teacher join us here. Welcome to the show, Doc Buehler.
Thank you.
How are you? I haven't seen you in like 20 years in
Oh
real
yeah,
life. It's been a long
I'm
time.
I'm doing well. I retired in from teaching in 2006.
I just graduated from high school in '05. Okay.
Okay, so
Okay.
I retired from teaching in 2006, and I'm as of last year I was still coaching. I'm probably still going to coach this year, but
Okay.
I don't know yet because at my age it's taken a toll on me. So we'll see what happens.
Okay. So are you, for everybody, just giving a quick update? Doc Buehler was also my track coach for a week when I went to high school at Lindbergh in St. Louis. And then I quit because my asthma, and I kind of chickened out and transferred to another school where I did not run track. So, but I just wanted to give everybody that update. And that's why I'm wearing a Lindbergh sweatshirt. So yeah, so you might still coach this year.
Yeah, I'm we left Lindbergh. Let's see, we were there 21 years. So we left Lindbergh in 2016.
Okay.
I went to Melville for 4 years. Went back
Okay.
to Melville because I had coached there before
Right.
for 4 years. And then the guy that used to be the head coach at Lindbergh got the head coach's job at Parkway South.
Okay.
And he called me and asked me if I wanted to come with him. My initial reaction was no. But then he reminded me that it was 4 blocks from my house. So that changed. And then we were there. We were only there 3 years, and then he decided to leave.
Okay.
And so I was, as far as I was concerned, I was done then. Uh,
Okay.
but then Melville's coach called me and said, "Why don't you come back here?" So I went back to Melville.
All
So
right.
we'll see what happens this year. Like I said, I have trouble with my knees and my feet sometimes, and I'm old. I'm like 78. So uh, most people, I want to say most people my age aren't coaching, but most people my age probably aren't even living. Uh, so it gets tougher.
But it's 78 really isn't that old when you really think about it. Like, look how active you are. It's like you're moving around, so it doesn't even register to you. I
Yeah, and
mean, I wouldn't say the
I
knees.
still get in the gym usually at least 3 days a week.
Okay.
So yeah, I try to I try to stay active, and also if you look at the actuary charts, the longer you live, the longer you're expected to live.
Mm-hmm.
So the male ex living now they're predicted is like 78, but
Okay.
I'm already 78. So
You
now mine is more like 85 or something like that.
Yeah, I think, Doc, with your personality, your tenacity, and all of that, you'll be around for 100. If that's something that you want, but I think you could be.
Oh, I want to be around for 100 because I'm going to get as much money from this crooked government back as I can possibly get.
I know that's right. Speaking of government,
Speaking of crooked government,
Doc always has such intriguing Facebook statuses, and a lot. You see so many different debates happening on your timeline. So
right?
I want to share something with you really quick before we get into the gist of everything,
Okay.
from someone kind of special, very close to me, older than me, but from another one of your students. They wanted to share this with you.
What's up, Doc Buehler? It's your boy to hear more. Oh, you probably don't know me by that name. Hello, Doc. It's Robert Moore. 8th grade class, homeroom. I remember the most the mock trial that we had to do. Because I remember I came dressed to the I had a suit on. I had a suitcase. Well, a briefcase, not a suitcase. I had the briefcase. I had papers and folders. I had everything except preparation. I was not ready. I got dragged to hell and back in that crazy horse mock trial. But it made me never go into a place not prepared again. So shout out to Doc Buehler, man. Uh, just a dope ass phenomenal teacher. Appreciate all the great minds that you've had an influence on, and definitely appreciate you and the influence you had on my life as well. Peace.
Thanks, dear. Yeah, I remember. I remember them, and the mock trials were fun. We,
Yeah.
and I would change them every year, as far as which historical figure we were putting on trial. In fact, I don't know if it was your class or it was another class.
You didn't do it with mine. It's okay though.
Okay, we did. Uh, one of the last years I was there, we did a mock trial downtown in the actual courtroom, and
That's really cool.
and the judge, it was a mock trial of Crazy Horse,
Okay.
and the judge, when they were done and she was doing the debriefing with the student, she said that they were better prepared than most of the attorneys that walked in her courtroom. By the way, Crazy Horse was found not guilty.
Okay. Okay. So for Crazy Horse, we didn't get the opportunity to do it, but we did the Lewis and Clark expedition, and I was
Right.
fortunate enough to be Sacagawea. And we didn't do Crazy Horse because I think they implemented some weird constitutional quiz or test or something. So we spent a lot of time doing that. So that's how we ended up not doing the mock trial
Yeah.
that year. I was kind of sad because my sister had been talking about it for a long time, and I was like, I hope I get Doc Buehler.
Yeah, the mock trials were fun, and Lewis and Clark was always fun because we had the courtyard and we could
Yep.
reenact it in the courtyard. So that was always fun too.
Yes.
And I remember one year class, it was another class. I can't remember, the young man's name was Bobby, but he was Bobby had a lot of health issues. So he had a colostomy bag. He was partially deaf. He was mostly blind.
Okay.
And I don't know if you remember, but part of that expedition was you had to go over the water. You had to go over the mountains.
The water, yes.
Okay, you had to go over the mountains. Well, the group he was in, his leader said, "What are we going to do about Bobby?" I said, "He's going over those mountains like everybody else." She was like, "What?" I said, "It's your problem. You got to get him over the mountains." So
Okay.
they figured out a way. They had ropes and everything. They got him over the mountains. The next day, I get a call from the office. And they say, and it's Miss Barnett.
Yes, I remember Rita.
Okay.
I
Well, she
remember
was
that.
the instructional coordinator then. And she goes, "I'm coming to your room. You need to come down here. There's a parent that wants to talk to you." And I'm thinking, oh my God, no. So I go down there, and sure enough, it's Bobby's mom.
Okay.
And she was like, "Are you the one that made my son go over those mountains?" I said, "Yes, I am." And she goes, "Thank you. He thinks he can do anything now."
See, this Doc, you have changed our lives for the better.
I was just going to say, I hope it's for the better.
Hey, you used to tease me a little bit, but it made me better. But I knew that you cared, and you cared about your students. And I think that's something that we don't, especially from where we're from, you have a lot of kids that are at risk,
Right.
that have overcome so many different trials and tribulations at our young ages. And seeing a teacher pour into you and recognizing that you do feel like you can do anything when
Right.
you have that support. So thank you.
You are very welcome. I had so much fun.
Man, a time was had, but it is time to get into the nitty-gritty of our country. You asked what were some of the things that I wanted to discuss with you. And one of the key things that I really wanted to discuss with you was the Electoral College.
Okay.
A lot of people don't understand what it is, what it does, and how it works, and how what is the popular vote, what is the, the other vote, and everything that happens. And people are confused, especially with the election with Hillary and all those different things. So it's like, I can't believe y'all don't know. So you have the floor to explain it in eighth grade or maybe third grade terms for this country.
Uh, okay. Well, let's go back to the Constitutional Convention.
Okay.
Okay. So they had to come up with an idea or a system where they could get both the large states and the smaller states to buy into the Constitution.
Okay.
Okay. So that was the basic problem. They also had to come up with a way to get the free states and the slave states to buy into the Constitution. So one of the things they did, the Electoral College was one of the things they did, and it's based on. Well, let me preface with something else. First of all, people need to understand that the Constitutional Convention was all rich white men. That's who they were.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they were planters. Some of them were attorneys, but they were all. There's an old historian, James McGregor Burns was his name, who said it was. I'm trying to remember exactly what he said. It was a convention of the well-read, the well-bred, the well-fed, and the well-wed. They married rich women. All right, so you're getting, you're getting that one group of people. I mean, those were the people who wrote the Constitution, and they had to have both the small states and the larger states accept. So what do? They say, well, everybody's going to get 2 senators, but your representatives are going to be based on how many people you have. All right. Well, then right away, the South says, well, what about the slaves? Well, we'll count them as 3/5 of a person. So that's how they got them. That's how they got them to buy in to the Constitution. And I mean, they established an amendment process so that it could change. But the problem is, how many amendments what do you have, like 25 amendments in 230 something years? It's almost impossible to change it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get 3/4, or excuse me, 2/3 of state conventions to agree that we need a new amendment, and you have to have 3/4 of them to ratify the amendment. In this political climate, do you ever think that's going to happen? That's never going to happen again.
Never going to happen.
At least not not right now. So the Constitution is basically what it is right now. And I had a professor when I was an undergraduate. I still remember the guy's name. Fred Hudson was his name. He was probably 75 years old when I had him. What am I saying? That's younger than me. But anyway, and he was very dry, and people would fall asleep in his class, but the guy was sharp. And one of the things he said that always stuck with me was the Constitution is exactly what the Supreme Court says it is. And therein lies our problem right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what the court is like right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very hard to change because justices, I mean, I know we have at least 3 justices on the Supreme Court now that have no business there. They shouldn't be there. Clarence Thomas shouldn't be there.
Should not be there.
He should not be there. Neither should Samuel Alito, and neither should Neil Gorsuch.
Yeah.
None of those 3 should be on the court. But they're there, and it's almost impossible to get rid of them. I mean, you can impeach them, but that's happened once in our history. So that's not something that is. So you just have to hope that they die. I mean, that sounds kind of mean, but that's basically what it is.
But it's the reality. Okay, so before we go back into this is a quick question. Do you think that we should have term limits in certain, areas of
Yes,
branches? Okay.
yeah, yeah. I think we should. I think we should have term limits, and I think we should have age limits.
Okay, I was going to say it. I didn't want to be offensive. But I
Right.
because of how historically quickly things change and people's views, we need people that are sharp that can keep up with that. So that's one of the conversations that I consistently have with my peers. And please don't tell my HR department I am an ageist. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, like right now, I wouldn't be talking with you if my wife wasn't smart enough to figure this out.
oh wow.
Because I
Okay.
can't do this. Okay, I don't do this normally,
Okay.
and I can't do it. As you can see, I have books.
Yes.
That's what I have. So,
So, okay. So from there, okay. So back to the Electoral College and the understanding. And so that's how they were able to, the states were able to buy into it. So from there, what are the next steps?
as far as
It's like we're the popular vote when we go into vote,
right,
right? So our vote does count, but under getting people to understand like the entire process, because people sometimes are confused by the number that they see versus what's happening. It's like a representative that goes in and actually votes for that state.
right,
Correct?
yeah,
Okay.
that's correct. That's correct. And not only is that correct, but they don't have to vote the way the state told them to vote. They
Yeah.
do in almost every occasion, but they don't have to.
Okay.
Um, so I mean, the system's flawed, but it's, the Constitution's what, 240 years old. So it's lasted a long time. My personal opinion is right now it's outdated
Hmm.
and it's too hard to change.
Okay.
Which is why we're in the mess that we're in right now. I mean, I'm sorry if I offend anyone, but the guy who's in the White House right now has no business there,
Yeah.
none whatsoever. Um, and But he's there.
What do you think could potentially went wrong with this election? There's a lot of dialogue that Biden dropped out too late, or it's simply because the country isn't ready for a female leader. What are some of the things that you potentially think could
Well,
that
I think Biden did drop out too late, but I
okay,
think he had no intention of dropping out until
okay,
he was forced out.
okay,
And that's on the Democrats because they should have realized it was too late to force him out. You
okay.
know, and that's not any kind of sling it at Harris because she's
Yeah,
competent,
yes.
you know, but she didn't really have a lot of time to put her campaign together. Now, I
Yeah.
think the campaign she ran, I didn't think Hillary ran a very good campaign.
Okay.
She skipped a bunch of states that she was sure she was going to win, states like Michigan,
Oh
and she
yeah.
lost it.
Yeah.
Okay. But Harris didn't do that. She went to those states. So it wasn't, it wasn't incumbent on her that she lost the election. I mean, she did what she could do. The time element was the problem.
Okay.
And was Biden too old? Yeah, probably. But so's Trump.
Yeah.
So,
I'm like, yeah. Okay, so but as far as voting and the voting process, I think where we also have a hang up is that a lot of citizens here just focus solely on the primaries or whatever. They miss midterms, they miss their, like different municipality like elections and all these things
right.
where we could it could be alderman, a congressman, this or whatever, comptroller, mayor. Can you explain to people why it is important to participate in those elections just outside of voting for the big one?
Well, yeah, because if you look at the situation, you're local people, your state people, for the most part, have a lot more influence on what happens in your life than the people in the national government do. I
Okay.
mean, I mean, and it's just that being a mayor or an alderman or something, that's not as glamorous as being in Washington D.C. So people don't pay as much attention to it. But I mean, it's every bit as important, if not more important, um, because your local government and your state government has a lot more effect on your life really than the national government does.
Yeah.
And I have no problem saying that because I live in a backward state. So I'm sorry, that's what Missouri is.
Yeah. Listen, it's so funny. I'm in a family chat and people are saying different things. I was like, "Ooh, child." I've been in California. It's like you're almost, not that we're exempt from a lot of the things that happen, but a lot of the things that we see in the discourse that we see in other states don't affect us. And I
Right.
know that Gavin and Karen Bass are not perfect. I enjoy them for what they are and what they provide and what they have done. But my God, like how are you guys, like how do we get to the point where we're overturning Roe, versus Wade, and now it's like this war against the, like female body and all these things and abortions, this and oh my God, and now we're deporting people. So I tell people, I'm like, you guys kind of just have to really get involved and push forward. So in the next 4 years, when you go into those booths throughout those times, hopefully you'll be the change that you want to see, so you can really feel and see the effects of everything. So
Well, and what has happened, and old senator from Arizona, Barry Goldwater,
okay.
who is known as Mr. Conservative. All right, he was conservative as you could get. He said 50 years ago, 60 years ago, if evangelicals ever get control of the political party, it's going to be a disaster.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what has happened, at least in the Republican Party,
Okay.
and in parts of the Democratic Party. And that's why you have all these anti-abortion laws, and fact of the matter is, it's none of their business.
Exactly.
It is absolutely none. I understand, if the father of the child, maybe he has a voice, okay, and whether the woman he's impregnated has the baby or not, but it's just a voice. It's her decision.
Yeah.
Nobody else should have anything to say about it.
Not at all.
But the Republicans spent 20 or more years getting control of the courts.
So can we stay here for a second, because we're always under the impression that there's a separation of church and state. So how does that even fuse back together, where it is the church pretty much is leading the way?
Well, when this democracy died, and I remember telling my wife this when it happened. It died in 2010
Okay.
when when the
Why 2010?
when the Supreme Court issued the Citizens United decision,
Okay.
which until then you were restricted on how much money you could give to a political party.
Okay.
But Citizens United said you can give whatever you want.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And once that happened, now you've got all these large businesses, large churches, whatever, that control the political parties,
Okay.
because you have to have money
Yeah.
to get elected. It's not going to happen without money. So that's been what, 15 years ago, and you've seen a steady downhill trend, um, as far as what's happening, and I mean, and I have I have a real problem with not just with evangelicals, but with any group of people that believe that they have the one true answer. You don't. I mean, you're entitled. Like, I remember explaining this to a group of students one time. This was when I was at Blow Middle, and Blow Middle was like one of the roughest schools in the city. But I had a ball there. I was there like 20 years, And
Okay.
I told them, I said, you can worship as long as you don't violate the law. You can worship any way you want. I said, if you want to go home and worship a dented beer can, you can do that because that comes under freedom of religion.
Mhm.
So when the class was over, and I said, and if you want to worship me, that will be fine. Also, I will be selling photos of myself for you to take home and worship for $10 each as you leave. And they're all boo.
So, okay, so this kind of leads me to this question of, do you ever think that, because we talk about dynasties and how long dynasties are pretty much in effect, and you're saying that like we're like 200 and how many, like 70
Well,
something?
so, since 1787, so
Okay.
230
Whenever that,
some. Yeah.
yes. So, do you ever think that there will be like, do you think we're at the collapse of this era of United States of America greatness, with ushering in Trump again for a second term? Like, do you think that this is just it, and it's just going to be chaos, or do you think it's just going to be like a reset?
It's going to be a slide downhill.
Okay.
It's going to be a slide downhill. I don't think it will explode right away,
Okay.
but we were already sliding downhill.
Yeah.
Now, the Biden administration for a while kind of put a stop to that, um, because of their policies. But I think at this point civilizations rise and they fall.
Hmm.
We're falling.
Okay.
There's no doubt in my mind we're falling.
Yeah.
Um, China's rising. Okay, we're
Yes.
falling. And how quick the fall will be, who knows? My personal feeling, as far as, and this will cause some problems with people, I don't think we should have ever let the South back in the Union.
Oh, okay.
I don't think we should have ever let them back in the Union. I say, you want to keep your slaves? Okay, we kicked your butts. Okay, we're done with it. Your slaves are free now. They're free now. They can leave. They can leave if they want to, but we don't want you back here.
Okay.
Okay, because they're a drain on the economy.
They
There is
are.
not one southern state, with the possible exception of Texas, which is real close, that puts more in the economy than they take out. Not one of them.
Mhm. Okay, so let's say hypotheticals. Let's run a
Mhm.
hypothetical situation here. If the if the South never joined, what do you think that would have looked like today potentially?
It would have looked like two different countries.
Okay.
They're like two different countries. The South, for the most part, would have been rural and agricultural,
Okay.
and most of the North, not all of the North, but most of the North would have been urban and industrial. Now,
Okay.
not all of it, because you've got deserts and everything else.
Right.
But no, it would have been two different nations, and I mean, I understand. I taught the Civil War for years and years, so I understand why the South was fighting, and it wasn't just for slavery, because there were a lot of people that didn't own slaves. One of the best um, things I heard about, they had captured a Confederate soldier,
Hmm.
and the Union soldiers were questioning. They couldn't figure out. They said, "Why are you fighting against us?" And they're expecting him to say, "We want to keep our slaves," or all he said was, "Because you're here.
Mm,
We didn't go up there. You came down here. So that's why we're fighting against you."
okay.
Which, and I understand that. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. So
Uh,
I think we're definitely on a downhill slide.
okay.
It'll be, Trump will accelerate it for sure.
Okay. So, we're talking about the South. I always bring up I saw a video on Vice when it was a thing, talking about the Daughters of the Confederacy and how they would not allow certain books, kind of similar to what we're experiencing now. Who knew that Fahrenheit 451 would be a thing for real? But
Right.
um, altering history, like kind of teaching people about racism, and it's a thing, like it's normal, we're better than these people, this is what happened, they came, like you said, they came down here, they did this, blah 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 blah. Could do you know anything more outside of that, how the Daughters of the Confederacy could be kind of somewhat impactful today, like their
No.
teachings?
Yeah. I mean, the Confederacy is, it's still the myth of a lost cause.
Okay.
You know, we were fighting for our way of life, and they were, but their way of life included slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so and I mean, they didn't, obviously most of them didn't own slaves, or if they did, they only owned one or two.
Okay.
But it was just like I said, it was a lost cause. And I don't know if you remember, and I probably did it with your class, but I know I did it with a lot of classes at Gateway. One day when we were doing the Civil War, one day we have a Union song, and the next day we'd have a Confederate song.
Okay.
Okay, so I know you remember Miss Jackson.
Yes.
Okay, so we had a Confederate song that day. Okay, and she comes in, she stands in the doorway, and she goes, "There is no other white man on the face of this earth that could get a group of black kids to stand up and sing Dixie." And they were like, "No, Miss Jackson, did you ever see the words to this? It's hilarious." But and I tried to teach it from the standpoint of where the North was coming from, where the South was coming from.
Right.
And that wasn't to excuse anything. Like people, a lot of times people will say, "Well, who do you most admire in history?" The two people I admire most in history are Crazy Horse and Malcolm X. And Malcolm X, those two.
Yes.
And the reason I admire them is because they had a mission, and it cost them their lives,
Mm-hmm.
but they never changed from that mission, not once.
Yeah.
And that's hard to do.
Yeah.
That's really hard to do.
Man, do you think that at some point that there will be some sort of shift? Because what we're seeing consistently happen throughout history, which is how we got to this downhill, slide, people voting against their better interests. We see it happen time and time again. Maybe not so much in the Obama years, but since this inception of Trump in office, you see like the numbers for white women, they got significantly higher. This go round, you had Latinos coming out in droves when this person is saying, "Hey, I'm gonna deport you." Why do we think that's happening? And then people are still shocked when this person, they're telling you who they are. Why is it so hard for people to believe that?
Too many people vote on one issue and one issue alone.
Okay.
They go to the polls. I'm anti-abortion.
Okay.
So I'm voting against anybody that supports abortion.
Okay.
Or, the other side, or I'm pro-abortion and I'm voting for anybody who's, and there, you have to look at all the, and of course, the other problem is politicians lie.
Okay.
They lie all the time. I mean, all you have to do is watch the Senate hearings of these people, being confirmed who have no business in the government. I mean, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is going to be the I'm sorry, and I loved his dad. I loved his dad. But this man has no business, or like our Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah.
She's a Russian bot. She doesn't have any business in the government, but every damn Republican except Mr. McConnell voted for her. And the only
Mm.
reason McConnell voted no is because he's not running for re-election.
Okay. Because I was gonna say it right now. How did he have some sense that day?
Well,
Okay. Sense.
because a lot of times when your career's over, okay, you're starting to think, what's my legacy going to be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And maybe so sometimes they try to make amends, and I think he actually probably voted his conscience this time, which
Okay.
he rarely did before.
Right. Okay. Whew, okay. Well, what do you think? It's just forecasting based on your knowledge. What do you think will happen? Like we know it's going downhill. We know this, but do we what do you think that could happen? Eggs are $30. The government has nothing to do with that. By the way, guys, like Trump can't fix that. Gas is gonna be astronomical. But where else?
Because people don't, just the two things you mentioned, people don't understand that it's supply and demand.
Yeah.
Eggs are high because of the bird flu. Okay. And nothing the government does, short of getting rid of the bird flu, is going to cause the price of eggs to drop. Trump knows that. But he also knew that people that voted for him were dumb enough to believe he could get the price of eggs to drop.
Yeah.
So that's not going to change. Demand for oil is not going to change because we don't. I mean, I'm a perfect example. I don't want an electric car.
Okay. Can I tell you why I don't want one? This is going to sound crazy. I still believe in the zombie apocalypse. I need to be able to get out of here.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, and
I'm gonna need my gas
without recharging, right?
I'm like, listen. Oh, but but also serious, all jokes aside, experiencing being evacuated
Right.
for the fires. I was just recently evacuated, which was so scary. The weird one thing that I did that Sunday was I filled up my car, and I was able, the moment we got that alert, grab some stuff and just go. I didn't have to, I didn't charge my car or anything. Those are things that I, consistently think about. So in the event of emergency, what am I going to do if I had an electric car and I'm in Pasadena, Eaton, and there's no electricity. Everything is on fire. So I think about post-apocalyptic things consistently. Unfortunately.
Can you take a break for a minute? Is that okay?
Yes.
Can I take a break? I'll be right back.
Sure can.
Legislative branch makes the laws. Okay, that's their job. So they, regardless of whether it's local, state, federal, doesn't matter. They make the laws. It's the job in the federal government, of the executive branch, to enforce the laws.
Okay.
Message to Trump: not just the laws you like, but all the laws. Okay. And then it's the job of the judicial branch to interpret or explain the laws.
Okay.
So once somebody challenges a law and it gets to court, then it's up to the court to decide, well, what to do with it. And one of the problems today is our courts, for the most part, are extremely conservative.
Okay.
So most of the decisions favor conservative values, whatever you want to call them. And that's basically how the three branches work. And you can challenge court decisions, but you should challenge court decisions, because eventually, if you feel it's unfair, because eventually it may never get to the Supreme Court, because they can only hear so many cases.
Yeah.
And they may not grand certiorari, which means, we don't want to listen to this crap. So, uh, but I mean, that's basically how it works. I mean, it seems pretty simple, and like I said, the Constitution has lasted a long, long time, and longer than any other constitution in the history of the world. Um, but it's outdated.
Yeah.
The means of changing it is outdated, and just because something's in the Constitution, I mean, I could go over to a bookcase over here and pull out a copy of the Chinese Constitution that the Communist Party has.
Hmm.
That doesn't mean anything. They don't follow it, but there it is. You know, um, so I mean, we're in a bind right now. I mean, it's and we're a nation that's divided. Uh,
Very.
yeah, very much divided, and a lot of it has to do well with two things: educational level. That's one thing. People with a higher education tend to be more to the left. Well, that's my right, to the left. Uh, uh, People that are with not as much education. I mean, and that's not demeaning anyone.
Yeah.
Uh, Tend to be more to the right.
Yeah.
Uh, Religious people, extremely religious people, tend to be more to the right.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's just the way the just the way that the situation breaks down. Um, and it's hard to get those two groups to agree on anything. Like, and I think education is a big part of it. I really
Okay.
do. I think educated people, that's why they that's why they want to restrict books.
Yeah.
That's why they
Yeah.
want to do it, because they don't want you to hear what the other side is saying.
Yeah.
Because if you hear what they're saying, you might go, well, wait a minute, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, so that tends to be, and I always felt like, I can read. If I read something and I don't like it, I'm smart enough to figure out I don't like it.
Yeah.
Um, but and I kind of see, restricting some things with young kids. But I mean, once they're in, certainly in junior high school, and probably even before that,
Yeah.
they should be able to pretty much read what they want. I mean, one of the reasons I became a history teacher was I had a sixth grade teacher. Her name was Miss Tucker. I'll never forget her. And when I was done with my work, she would let me go lay in the back of the room and read biographies.
Mm.
And I would go back there, and they had these they were all little blue bound books of various famous people in history. And in fact, my mom used to say, "Why do you always come home with your clothes dirty?" Because I was laying in the back of the room reading, reading these biographies. But she was one of the most influential teachers I had. And
Yeah.
another one was a man by the name of Warren Becklin, who I had my junior in high school at Jennings. And his final exam, every morning, he would play a 5-minute clip of the news. And, you listened to it, you took notes, whatever. The final exam was write the last chapter of the book. That's brilliant. That is brilliant. And, that's what I decided then, that's what I want to do. I want to
Mm.
teach history.
And you said what grade was that? You said high
That
school?
was I was a junior in high school.
Okay.
That
Okay.
was
Yeah.
my junior in high school, and a lot of people didn't like him because he was tough.
Okay.
I mean, he was tough. He was demanding, but man, I just thought that was so cool. That was I loved it.
Yeah. I think eighth grade year was when I knew that who I wanted to be and where I wanted to go.
Hmm.
And I knew that I would end up in LA. I went to New York that summer after leaving Gateway, and actually a couple weeks before 9/11 happened. And I was like, "Ooh, it's too hot. It's humid. It's too many people." And then I really enjoyed. I also went to LA that summer, and I was like, "I want to go to LA. I want to work in entertainment and all these different things." And so it's so funny, like hearing different people's story in different ages where
Yeah.
they figured out where they want to end up and where they want to go. And so that's really cool to learn that about you. I really appreciate having this time to talk to you. One thing that I specifically remember from your class is Thomas Paine's pamphlet of common
Common
sense.
sense. Yeah.
Yes. And so I remember somebody one day said, well, well, common sense ain't common. I said, I know Thomas Paine had to write a pamphlet about it.
Hmm.
So
That's right. Yeah.
I appreciate those little life lessons and gems. And you were very impactful to all of us. And we appreciate you so much. And I don't know how often your students tell you that, but I am here to give you your flowers now. And I was so nervous today. And I was like, oh my God. And I told my mom, I was
Think I
like,
was going to give you a test or what?
I'm like, what if I say something? Because like me, my degree is in broadcast journalism and public relations, and so
Hmm.
I've done a little bit of PR and building more into the journalistic realm with my podcast, and I've interviewed, like different celebrities and things like that. But it's just something about your teacher and being very direct, like, oh my gosh, So I really appreciate you, and I had such a good time with you
Oh,
today.
I had a great time also. So
Yes, so.
anytime you want to do this, feel free.
Okay. And see, it wasn't that complicated. Wifey clicked the link and
Well, I don't
I
know.
did.
I don't know. My wife did all that. I just came. She said, "Okay, it's up." I just came down, sat down.
And then my light went out. So
Yeah.
that is definitely our time. So
Okay.
I appreciate you so much, and you take care. And I will definitely be in touch with you. In every clip, I will tag you on Facebook so you can share with everybody, and we can have these really good dialogues surrounding
Okay.
what we spoke about today.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
All right.
All right.
All right. Take care.